Welcome to Orioles on the Verge. This is Zach Spedden, joined as always by Bob Phelan and Nick Stevens. And on tonight's episode, we have some promotions to break down as several of the Orioles' top prospects are jumping up to new levels this week. And while there are several pitchers making moves up, there are some notable position players as well, which we're going to highlight on tonight's episode. But I want to start with the highest move up the organization in terms of level, and perhaps the most notable of the transactions to happen this week, and that is the promotion of right-handed pitcher Trey Gibson from Double-A Chesapeake up to Triple-A Norfolk. Gibson has thrown 91 innings this year between High-A Aberdeen and Double-A Chesapeake, has a 3.07 ERA, the 2.78 FIP, and a 2.36 xFIP to go on to 36% strikeout rate and a 8.5% walk rate. And he has seemingly gotten stronger along the way. After kind of an up and down start at Aberdeen, Gibson was dominant before getting promoted to the Double-A level, where he was seemingly better. And Nick, I will start with you here because this is kind of a return for Gibson, who is from the Hampton Roads area, to go up to Norfolk. You have been among the three of us calling for this promotion for a while. So what are your thoughts on Trey Gibson becoming kind of a rare Orioles pitching prospect to go three levels in one season?
Yeah, welcome back to Virginia, the best state in the country, at least the best Commonwealth. He is the best pitching prospect in this organization, and I don't think there's really any debating that much. Like last year, his first pro season was about just building him up after the year off, not pitching his final year at Liberty, 20-something innings on the Cape before the Orioles signed him. But in his build-up season, he went 92 innings, pitched across two levels, huge strikeout numbers, and then decided in that last month of the season to dial it up a little bit more. And you saw the velo go from 94 to 95 in the final month of the year after he's closing in on 100 innings. Like the guy, he got up to 99 last year with 7 feet of extension. It's explosive stuff. And this year now he's up to 91 innings already. 3 levels, like you mentioned, which is pretty fun to see a pitcher do this. We see hitters do it all the time, especially those first-year college guys. But to see a pitcher do this is quite fun, especially an arm as dominant as Gibson. But the strikeouts are up from 30% to 36%. The walk rate is down from 10% to 8.5%. He's 6'5", 230, 240 pounds, tall, sturdy arm, more than capable of being a durable starter who regularly works deep into outings and gets a ton of swing and miss like this. And I actually pulled this up, I missed this. I think, I can't remember if I read this originally or not, but John Muley in his article on Gibson in the Banner a couple weeks ago, this quote here from Jordy Henry, pitching coach in the Orioles system here, I loved the most. And he was talking about Gibson's, he has like 4 to 5 breaking balls now. And the quote from Muley's article was, Henry's approach with Gibson was unlike anyone else he's ever coached. And this is a quote from Henry. I'd never done this before, but it was kind of an exploratory pitch design phase in the offseason where we had like 3 new pitch options on the table. It was the gyro slider or death ball, the 2-seamer, and a new changeup. We tried all those grips starting in September. And then in the movement camp he went to and throughout the offseason, and really just found some grips we thought would work. When he initially tried all of them, there was something there with each of them. So they're like, we've got this high quality arm. Let's try all this stuff. Hopefully maybe one really takes off and one of those breaking balls becomes super dominant. And then hopefully we see flashes with another one. We'll work on that across 2025. And Gibson's like, oh, like do this and this. All right, done. Got it. What's next? Oh, now I just need to hit my spots. All right, done. Like what's next? He literally got promoted to Double-A. And if I get the game logs to load here, 6 innings, 1 hit, 1 run in his first start in Double-A. Next outing, 5 2/3 innings, 1 hit, no runs. He tinkers a little bit, has some struggles for 2 straight starts. Since then, 33 innings, 3 earned runs, 7 walks, 43 strikeouts, and a promotion to Triple-A. Like just dominant. There's no other word to describe it.
Yeah, kid's special. I do think there was some debate, maybe in June, I think between him, Michael Ferrett, and the guy Braxton Bragg. I'm like, he's hurt. Forget about him. Which is a shame that he did get hurt because he probably would have gone up the same time or maybe before Gibson here. But yeah, I think over the last month and a half, Trey has just put the nail in the coffin in the debate. It's clear as day. He seems to be just special when it comes to pitch design, like you said, because he had a really good interview on Steve Molesky's podcast where he's talking about, I have 4 sliders. I have the sweeper. I have the gyro type of slider. I have the death ball. And I have a cutter. I guess cutter could be either fastball or a slider, whichever. I guess it depends on how much it breaks. But if he's got 2 fastballs, he's got a changeup. Like, seems like he can just do whatever he wants out there, and it's showing with the way the hitters respond. Yeah, his breaking stuff's ridiculous, but he's also got that fastball that I don't think it plays up. It's mid to high 90s. I know he touched 97 in his last start, and yeah, I can't wait to get this data on him and just really decide how much of the next Mike Messina he's going to be, because I kind of think that's where it's trending. And yeah, Orioles fans aren't ready for Trey Gibson. I know that much.
Yeah, I want to touch on that pitcher of the year discussion for a moment, because Braxton Bragg was the front runner for much of this season. Unfortunately, his injury is going to, obviously eat into the rest of 2025 and perhaps all of 2026. But taking a step back here, look at where Gibson ranks in some key areas in the Orioles farm system. Right now, he is 4th in innings pitched, behind only Cameron Weston, Thad Ward, and Nestor Herman among minor league pitchers. When it comes to strikeouts, he is tops in all of the farm system, 135. The next closest pitcher is Blake Money at 113. So there's a considerable gap there between first and second. And I don't really think at this point that you really have much of a discussion about who's going to win pitcher of the year. And that's no disrespect to some of the other guys I think have made reasonably strong cases of their own. Nestor Herman, Michael Ferrett, who we're going to talk about in a few minutes. Even if you want to go a little bit further down, a guy like Ibro Cartaya, Blake Money's another name you could throw in there. But Gibson, for my money, not only statistically has been the best pitcher in the Orioles farm system this year, but because of everything we just mentioned with his repertoire, he's the top pitching prospect in the Orioles farm system. That's where we have him on our list right now, 4th overall, and the top pitcher in the farm system, 2 spots ahead of Michael Ferrett, the second highest ranked pitcher, and 6 overall on our list. And that's per our update last week. So everything for Gibson, I would say since the beginning of May, has just been trending in an upward direction.
Yeah. I was going to say, now I'm very interested now that he's in AAA, though, for a couple of things. And not to, like, we just spouted off all this greatness and gave him all his flowers. But with all that said, he is now entering a new career high in innings. 92 last year. He's at 91 this year. I mean, he should get to what? Do we think 120? Somewhere around that range here? We got a little bit of time. Like, I think low A and high A have 4 weeks left. Just 4 series. That's it. But AAA runs through September 21st. So a little bit more time in AAA now. But we know, like, that strike zone is tighter than it's ever been before. We know it's the new ball that he's gonna have to deal with, the major league ball. I'm very anxious to see how quickly he adjusts to AAA. If he takes off from the start, like, the legend is going to continue to grow here with Trey Gibson. But does he take a few starts to settle in? How do they use him? Do they let him go 6 innings, 7 innings deep like he has? He's got a couple 7-inning performances under his belt here in AA over the last couple of weeks. But do they let him ride 6+ innings a start, or do they try to, like, piggyback him with somebody and try to limit his innings down the stretch to stretch him out the rest of the way? I'm interested in all that. But yeah, you talk about the data. I don't think any of us are ready to get that full look at the pitch data. And now that we're going to get the full StatCast look at Trey Gibson finally.
Yeah, and that's a good point. There definitely could be a bump in the road here. Not like, I mean, it doesn't really change the way we see things, because we saw with, like, Brandon Young, where, when he first went up to AAA, there was definitely an adjustment. An offseason went by, and all of a sudden he's got the IVB back to where it was before AAA, and he's figured out AAA, and now he's trying to do the same thing in the major leagues. It could be the same for Gibson. Or here, let's just do the perfect scenario. He doesn't have a speed bump, and this guy's competing for a starting rotation spot in spring training 2026. But either way, I think it's going to be a great learning experience. Either he gets adjusted quickly and we get even more excited about him, or he takes his lumps and he knows what he's got to work with. And apparently he's pretty quick learner between seasons. So yeah, it's exciting.
Yeah, and that's a good point to bring up here because it leads into something I was going to say, which is that with what we have left in the season, which is about a month, and Gibson maybe is going to throw another 20 to 25 innings, 30 max. Um, I don't care that much about his baseline statistics at AAA over the next month, good or bad. I just want to see signs of adjustment to the level because you're right, Nick. It is harder, I think, now to make the jump from AA to AAA as a pitcher than it has ever been. Tighter strike zone, difference in the baseball. There's a lot of things that pitchers have to overcome now. So if Gibson goes out and the first 2 or 3 starts are kind of ugly, I'm not going to panic, especially if when I look at the data, which we can do now, he's a AAA, and I see that the pitches, the velocity, the movement is about what I would expect. I'm not going to worry.
Yeah, we're seeing it with Keegan Gillis right now. He's struggling mightily in AAA, but I don't think he's any less of a pitcher than he was when he was dominating AA. Maybe he had a little bit of good luck in double, a little bit of bad luck in triple, but he's clearly dealing with the smaller strike zone, a lot of walks that are unusual for him. So yeah, I think Cameron Weston. We had a good debate in the Discord with Tommy Carr. Just why is his strikeout numbers have gone down a little bit. Walks have definitely gone up, but as someone who has watched a lot of the games, Tommy said, I think his control is just the same as it ever was. It's just that strike zone is ridiculous. So, yeah, it's something to contend with. That's for sure.
Let's go now to Michael Ferrett, who's making the jump up from Aberdeen to Chesapeake. And this is a move we have been waiting for a while. Ferrett got off to a dominant start at Aberdeen this season before being placed on the IL with a back injury. And when he returned from that injury, really showed no signs of rust at all. And while the Orioles basically eased him back in from the time that he returned to the mound on June 4th, he was flat out dominant with the Ironbirds after missing about a month's worth of action. And overall there, Ferrett had 59 2/3 innings pitched this season with a 1.51 ERA, 2.50 FIP, 2.73 xFIP to go as a 33.5% strikeout rate and a 7.5% walk rate. This is a promotion that we've been calling for quite a while. We haven't really been sure why it wasn't happening, but perhaps it was just that one domino, in which case the promotion of Trey Gibson up to AAA needed to fall for Ferrett to get that move. But nonetheless, Ferrett able to make the jump up to AA now. And just to put a little bit more context behind his post-injury return, Ferrett has appeared in 11 games since returning in his first outing on June 4th. In that time period, he struck out 47 batters over 38 innings, held opposing hitters to a 169 average, and posted a 1.42 ERA. And if you want to go for a really eye-popping stat here, opposing hitters OPS against him in that time period, 452. So this is someone that has just been dominating the competition at high A. He's now going to get a look at AA. And Bob, I'm going to start with you here. This promotion was really obvious, and it probably could have happened sooner, but nonetheless, very exciting, very happy to see Ferrett going to AA.
Yeah, he's making hitters look like Greg Allen out there in high A. Yeah, it's about time. I mean, I get it because there is that log jam, especially AA. You know, I keep a list throughout the season of guys to watch and their numbers and stuff. And AA is definitely a longer list than a lot of the other teams when it comes to pitching. And he's on the younger side, whereas guys like Bragg and Gibson are a little bit older compared to him. So I kind of get it, but at the same time, he was just dominating for all season, basically. Yeah, he's something else. He's another guy I feel like that adapts really well because he added the death ball as well, and it's working for him. He had a quote somewhere that was like, I feel like things are starting to click now, and it's like, oh, just now? Okay. So he's up in AA now. They were clearly managing his innings. I don't know if it was strictly because of the back injury or because they said, here's the goal we're trying to get to, and here's how many up downs we want him to have. But he definitely was a little bit babied in the middle of the season, especially coming back from that injury. But hopefully now he's able to at least go out there and throw 5 innings each outing with AA, and can't wait to see what he can do there too.
That's the biggest thing for me. Like, first and foremost, the fact that he's getting promoted now, I think should mean health wise we're all good. Because we talked about this last week too. He missed a month, closer to 5 weeks, I think, earlier this year because of the back issue. Came back the first week of June, and remember, he no rehab outings. They didn't send him to Sarasota. They didn't even send him to Delmarva. He went straight back into Aberdeen's rotation. But it was like 1 inning, 2 innings, 3 innings, like slowly building him back up. And then it was 4 shutout innings. Like, all right, he's back. But then it was back down to 2 and 3 inning outings, then back up to 4 and 5. And so it was just this up and down and up and down. So I don't know. Maybe there were some lingering effects with the back. Maybe they're just being cautious. Again, no idea. But he never really seemed to be like fully unleashed since coming off the IL. But I just think, yeah, you're bumping up to AA now where the innings are going to be more stressful than they were in high A. So I think health-wise, we should be good. Should be in the clear because, yeah, statistically, I mean, Ferret is standing right there, right behind Trey Gibson. Even with the limited innings, his numbers are going blow for blow with Trey Gibson. And like Trey Gibson, the strikeouts are way up, the walks are way down. 10% walk rate last year. That's down to sub 8% this year. And also like Gibson, where like the immediate adjustments to his repertoire were there, like you just talked about, revamped the breaking stuff, added a lot of weight as soon as the Orioles drafted him because he was this tall, skinny JUCO kid, found instant success while throwing more strikes and doing a better job of commanding it all in the zone. And the results have followed. And so like both of these guys, we're not talking about incremental gains with these two arms. It's been like fairly significant gains. And I think given their histories, Gibson, the undrafted kid out of Liberty who didn't pitch his final year, and then Michael Ferrett being the JUCO kid, later round draft pick, given those histories, like to see where they are now is phenomenal to watch. Like, and this is what we're talking about when people are like, God, the pitching prospects in the system and what the Orioles are lacking. Like this is what they're doing. Like, these are the guys they are creating. And I am every single outing I watch with so much intent because I cannot wait for one of these guys to truly break out at the major league level and finally like put that stamp on this. Is like this is what the Orioles are able to do with the pitching prospects. Like this is why we harp on it so much and pay attention so much to these arms, because nobody was drafting this kid. Nobody wanted Trey Gibson. Orioles took him, and now look where he's at. So
yeah, and that logjam we talk about now, it's bubbling up. Next year, it's going to be at AAA. It's going to be Trey Gibson, Cameron Weston, rest in peace, Braxton Bragg, Nestor Erman, Joanne Watts Brown, Blake Money, Michael Ferrett at some point. Like these guys are hitting AAA, AA, upper minors, and yeah, that's going to be huge. I wish it could have been a year sooner because that would have helped this season for sure for the Orioles. But it is what it is, and they're here. They're arriving at AAA, which is obviously one step away from the majors. One opportunity, one injury, boom, they come in, they take a hold of the reins, and it's not all of our hopes are just on Trey Gibson and Michael Ferrett. There is a huge group of pitchers bubbling up in the upper minors that are going to be helping the Orioles for a long time.
Absolutely. We'll move on now to a position player of note that was promoted, and that's Nate George, who is reaching his third level of the season as he gets to jump from Delmarva to Aberdeen. George got off to a torrid start in the FCL this year, and after a pretty brief stint there was promoted to low A, where most nights he looked like the best player on the field, posting on 164 WRC plus and 186 plate appearances with the Shorebirds, and doing this at a very young age, having been drafted out of high school last year. I think the fact that George went 3 levels this year is in and of itself a huge accomplishment for someone who's 19 years old. And honestly, a guy that if he had put up 775 to 800 OPS in the FCL this year and that had been it, we would have been happy with that season. But he has accomplished so much this year. And Nick, I'll start with you. I think you can pick apart George's game any way you want. You know, you can look at the power, you can look at the hit tool, you can look at the strikeouts being a little high, maybe the walks a little bit too low, the inefficiency when it comes to stolen bases. But there are 5-ish tools here to work with, and what seems to be a very high ceiling. So what are your thoughts on George getting this bump up to Aberdeen?
Was not expecting this one at all. And we just sat here last week doing the top 50 update and talked about Nate George and Esteban Mejia specifically, and how like, these are both two incredible prospects with ceilings that are so much fun to sit here and dream on who they can become. But they're both teenagers in low A with a lot of growth and development to go. And so let's be excited, but let's be patient. And the Orioles were just like, bet you want to be patient. All right, we're moving him up to high A as a 19-year-old. He doesn't turn 20 until next June. So if he keeps trending like this, he could be in double A or very close to double A as a 19-year-old still. Like, that's pretty awesome to see. So are we still going to remain calm after all this? It depends on these next 4 weeks, because like this promotion was completely earned. And yeah, you talk about the hesitations in his game, but he's got 4 weeks now, and let's see how those areas progress. He only hit 1 home run in 43 games with Delmarva, but he had 8 doubles and 7 triples. And he's already traded in a big chunk of those ground balls he was hitting in the FCL for more line drives. 55% ground ball rate in the FCL, that dropped to 38% in Delmarva. That entire difference went towards his line drive rate. So I have full confidence that this is trending towards more home runs in the future. And just the hit tool in general, like coming out of the draft, that was one of the bigger questions with George. He really didn't face a ton of elite competition, didn't have a ton of experience out on the showcase circuit and all of that. So a lot of question marks about when he gets into a pro system, how is he going to fare against stronger pitchers? And like, we don't have the granular data that I would love to be able to look at here with the low A guys, but an 80% contact rate and sub 10% swing and strike rate are good initial signs. Like, I'd love to look at more specifics. Just looking at the information we have here, that's pretty solid. And he's a year and a half younger than the average player in low A right now. So 64% above league average at the plate. And that doesn't even begin to address the defense. But yeah, expectations for me for the rest of this year, again, it's just 4 weeks left. I'm just going to enjoy the ride. Like, I'm not putting any firm expectations on stats I want to see or anything like that. I'd love to see him be a little bit more efficient on the base paths. Maybe see if he can start tapping into a little bit more of that over the fence power over these last couple of weeks. But honestly, he's 19 years old. He's in high A, 3 levels, 16th round draft pick that no one had heard of coming into the draft. And here we are now. He's on top 100 prospect list. So I just want to enjoy the ride for those 4 weeks he's in Aberdeen this year.
Yeah, I'm going to guess that the numbers under the hood, the analytics are pretty strong because, 81st on the Baseball America top 100 now, 33rd on Prospects Live's Ross Jensen's personal top 100 list. I want to get out to Aberdeen one more time this year, at least, to see him hit a gap and just cruise in for a triple. That is a big outfield. I could see him having definitely some hustle doubles and triples in the next couple of weeks, but man, what a rise. And it's funny that I'm not going to call this person out, but someone was like, I thought, Nate George was really popping off in FCL and he kind of quieted down in low A. And I'm like, man, how fast expectations change, because he had like around 9% walk rate in FCL, about the same in Delmarva. He had like a 16% strikeout rate in FCL, about the same in Delmarva. ISO is slightly down, mostly because he hit a couple home runs in the FCL, and those translated to doubles and triples in low A, like Nick said. And the WRC plus was like 179 to 164. So basically the same player at the 2 different levels. And we'll see if he can have a WRC plus over 110 even, or 100 in Aberdeen. That's pretty damn impressive. 19 years old and only 2 months. Yeah, he's a breakout. There's no doubt about it. Big time breakout prospect.
And he's joining at the right time because Aberdeen is coming off this huge week. We're going to talk about one player in particular later on in a minute here that had a big week. Like, now they get to add just this electric player and personality in Nate George. We said coming into the year that Aberdeen was going to be the affiliate to watch, and then they were the affiliate that really struggled this year and really made us the most frustrated. But now these last couple of weeks, it's back to Aberdeen is must watch TV for many reasons. If you want to get out to the ballpark one last time before they're part of the draft league and no longer part of the organization, and you also get to see a lineup full of some pretty exciting prospects now, or at least guys who are starting to hit their stride here at the end of the year, which better late than never.
Yeah, not only are the Ironbirds getting a little bit more interesting with the addition of George and then some of their hitters stepping up, which we're going to talk about in a moment here, but Delmarva's roster is getting an influx of new prospects thanks to the assignment of several players that were included in the most recent draft class, headlined by the Orioles' first pick this year, Ike Iris. And Nick, I think you have the full rundown there from Rock Cabato over at Masson, but we're looking at about 6 players, Iris, Vahia, Loy, Caden Bodine among them, expected to get to bump up to Delmarva this week after a short stint in the FCL. Technically, the FCL is not in the regular season anymore, but there are still games going on down there. So after a little bit of a tune-up, these guys getting to jump up to Delmarva.
Yep, Ike Irish, Caden Bodine, Wahiva Loy, RJ Austin, Colin Yeaman, and Braden Smith, the fun utility type player out of Oklahoma State. Yeah, of course, excited to see what Ike Irish can do. Excited to see where he plays. I imagine he's probably like DH outfield. I wonder how much run they're going to give him behind the plate, if any, these last couple of weeks. But Irish, ready to see that bat on display, same as Bodine, ready for everybody to see that hit tool on display. I'm honestly, though, I'm most excited, intrigued, I'll say. I'm most excited to see the top guys, of course, but I'm most intrigued, honestly, to see RJ Austin. I'm happy that they're giving him some early run here because this was the guy that I mentioned last week. He didn't crack our top 50, but I threw out at the end of the show, like, I think we might be like highly disrespecting RJ Austin right here. There's something. I have this feeling. As much as I watched him at Vanderbilt and saw that, yeah, he flashed the tools and yeah, all the underlying data looks good, but just the numbers weren't there at Vanderbilt the last couple of years. The Orioles went aggressive with RJ Austin for a reason. So I'm hoping we see at least a flash of that reason over these last couple of weeks. But yeah, I know a lot of people are very impatiently waiting for these guys to probably make their debuts, but they're here. We don't know which day. I don't think Rock or anybody reported exactly which day. I didn't see that, but we're here. They're starting to trickle in.
Yeah, I would imagine it's tomorrow, but could certainly be wrong. The Orioles love messing with our predictions by like one day on purpose, like calling up a guy on a Thursday or a Saturday. But hopefully it's tomorrow because I'm looking forward to watching that game. And honestly, I'm a little nervous about the repercussions of 6 players getting added to Delmarva, but that's a different discussion. Just, yeah, I want to see these guys in a lineup in a quote unquote Orioles uniform, Shorebirds uniform, and start falling in love with these guys and make our official assessments. And I think Colin Yeaman is probably the guy I'm like outside of the top guys. Like Nick said, I am excited to watch just because, man, he seems like he could be a guy that flies up our charts here as he gets comfortable in the system. Just seemed like a really fun player. See if he can do it at the pro level like he did at the college level.
Yeah, and just for reference, going back to last week's episode when we updated our top 50, currently Ike Iris ranks 3rd in the farm system, Wahia Aloy is 5th, Caden Bodine is 11th, and then Colin Yeaman down at number 36. So pretty decent influx of players coming here. The Shorebirds, by the way, are on the road this week for a series at Lynchburg. For those that check out MILB TV, Lynchburg's got a pretty decent center field camera angle, as I recall. So might be worth checking out a Shorebirds game if you get the chance. And then next week, Delmarva returns home to begin a series against Kannapolis on August 19th.
Yeah, closer to me, but close, but little too far. So I don't know if I'm able to make it out, but they've got their pitching rotation for the week. Looks like already set as well. And it's every single night is going to be must watch down there for Delmarva. It's fun times.
Rattle it off if you have it.
Oh, I lost. I think tomorrow night's Twine Palmer. I'm trying to go off memory. Tuesday's Twine Palmer. Then Bateman, I think.
Tuesday with Twine.
Yeah, Bateman's going. Mejia is on Sunday. So if you're ready to come down to Lynchburg on Sunday, that's Esteban Mejia. I think Keeler Morphe Saturday. I think it was the same rotation as last week. I think they're repeating it again. But
oh, that was one thing I wanted to mention when we were talking about Nate George is another guy who we were proceeding with caution or saying, don't get too excited. 2 starts into Esteban Mejia's Delmarva career, and I'm starting to get pretty excited. I'm not going to lie; it's becoming more real the more we see him in a full season organization.
Yeah, and I plan to talk about this a little bit more in our next episode when we wrap up the FCL. But I did get a chance to see Mejia start on Sunday and came away pretty impressed. So we'll have a little bit more on that then. But Mejia is certainly off to a strong start at Delmarva. And with that, now we will head into our final segment of this episode. Last call brought to you by Checker Spot Brewing, located at 1421 Ridgely Street. Checker Spot is not far from Camden Yards, making it the perfect place for a pre or post game drink. And when you're at the ballpark this year, be sure to check out the beer stand behind home plate for one of Checker Spot's signature beers. The Bird is the word. And in this episode, we're going to do our usual shout out of players outside the top 30 portion of our top 50 for something they've done recently, whether it's been a good game, a good week, or just something interesting in their stat line that we want to note. And I want to start with Bob here because the hitter he's going to highlight is a guy that you would not have thought coming into the season would qualify for this segment at any point. You certainly hope that he wouldn't have, but yet he's here, and we might have seen, we hope, the beginning of a little bit of a renaissance last week.
Yeah, I think if this was, I'm going to hold off on saying who it is. If this was just a random week in August and didn't precede a mysterious ankle injury followed by a complete stance change when he came back, Vance Honeycutt is my under or below the top 30 prospect player of the week because, yeah, he missed 2 weeks for I'm going to say quote unquote ankle injury. Maybe that he had a sore ankle, but clearly was working on stuff behind the scenes because his stance was completely different. I've been calling him revamped stance Vance ever since. And yeah, he timed that with hitting the ball for power, being a little more aggressive at the plate, which is what we've been hoping to see from him. He was 9 for 22 on the week, 407 batting average, 1136 OPS. He had 2 doubles, a triple, a home run, and 4 stolen bases, 318 ISO, a 224 WRC plus. Now, he didn't walk. He struck out 31% of the time still. And, BABIP was pretty high. So that's clearly, some luck involved as well. But it's what you want to see from a guy who I had completely out of my top 50. And if he keeps this up for the rest of this month, maybe I'm going to have to put him back in there somewhere, maybe close to where you guys had him. But it's just great to see a flash of life, if anything else. Now we can cling to hope based on this week alone. What do you guys think before I go into my pitchers?
I'm not getting excited yet, but I will say it was very nice to see him put together some really good at-bats. And even if the home run, it wasn't like a 2-strike slider on the out third of the corner that he sent the other way, like I think it was kind of like a meatball pitch, but he was swinging and missing a lot of those all year. So like it's just good to see, even if it's just a confidence boost. Like I don't care who they were playing, just the fact that he put those numbers up last week across the board, that entire Aberdeen lineup for the most part, and the top prospects who we've been frustrated with showed out last week. And some of those guys have been showing out for a little bit longer than just a week. So I'll take signs of life at the end of year one. It's a lot better than him continuing to kind of just straggle his way through the end of the year. And then we're left like, what the hell is going on, man? But
yeah, I want to believe. I'm not getting too far ahead of myself. I did like to see the batting stance adjustment, but I want to believe. And like Nick said, anything that can help to get Honeycutt's confidence back up over what's left of this season and hopefully go into high A again next year, feeling like he's overcome the hurdles that he faced for most of this year, he could get himself right back on track. That's probably the best case scenario we could hope for now.
Yeah, that sounds good. About right. And I super cheated for my pitchers. I'm going with 3 relief pitchers in Delmarva, same bullpen. And the reason I wanted to highlight these 3 guys, other than just being able to highlight 3 guys, is I think there potentially could be an organizational philosophy shift here. I think we saw it. We talked about it a little bit at the trade deadline. We're targeting more reliever-specific prospects and again, this is a whole nother can of worms, but going to have to learn how to evaluate pure relief prospects when comparing them to other guys because I have a hard time with that. But just seems like between Tyson Neighbors, Micah Ashman, obviously, I mean, that's kind of just a throw in to get from Charlie Morton, but the Mets trade for Cedric Mullins, it was a bunch of relievers. And I think these guys like Joe Glassy, Andy Fabian, and Jacob Stretch could be, along the same lines where Andy Fabian, he was starting games, if I'm not mistaken, last year. This year, strictly out of the bullpen, and it's pretty impressive. As a result, in the FCL before his promotion to Lower Aberdeen, he had a 34.7% strikeout rate, 16% walk rate. Yeah, that's high. But if you're striking out that many guys, it helps a little bit. 2.12 ERA to a 2.63 FIP. And then after his promotion to A ball, full season ball, 45% strikeout rate, 15% walk rate. So walk rate dropped by 1%, but he still has a 30% strikeout to walk ratio, 1.74 ERA, 1.80 FIP, and he's getting 61.5% ground balls for the Shorebirds as well. So, yeah, I think the funky lefty with the never going to work with this delivery, according to Keith Law, but he's doing something right because Andy Fabian, who I will say Zach has been all over since last season, he's looking like a pretty darn good relief prospect. Shout out Yaki Rivera in AA as well. Joe Glassy, on the other hand, 24 years old and started the season hurt, but pretty notable that in his 25 2/3 innings pitched since becoming a member of the Orioles organization, he has 28 strikeouts and 1 walk. Yes, 1 walk. And that came this season in the FCL as he was working his way back. Combined this season between Delmarva and the FCL, he had a 1.50 ERA, 3.16 FIP, 2.47 xFIP over 18 innings, 31% strikeout rate, 1.5% walk rate. Yeah, last year he had 7 2/3 innings pitched, 7 strikeouts, no walks. So the command is definitely not an issue for Joe Glassy. And it's kind of similar for Jacob Stretch, at least on the walk side. Since he's become a shorebird, it's 3 2/3 innings, but no walks yet. Combined between A-ball and FCL, he's only pitched, I want to say 8 innings this year, but he has a 37.8% strikeout rate, 13.5% walk rate, 0 ERA, 2.16 FIP, and he's holding batters to a 156 batting average against. So just some guys. Luis Beltran also in that Delmarva bullpen. So let's become the Cleveland Guardians when it comes to relief pitching prospect.
Yeah. You bring that up, and you're adding off these names, and look at how those guys were acquired. They're building those guys also the same way they're building the Major League bullpen and finding these hidden gems on the waiver wire. So they're picking the 22-year-old guy out of the Dominican, giving him $5,000 or probably $50, and Andy Fabian, Jacob Stretch, Glassy, all UDFAs. Like,
yep,
fun. Yeah, I had to pull this. I like Jacob Stretch a lot because he's so in college he was 92 to 93, but 20 inches of induced vertical break and like 6.7 feet of extension. Yeah. So Jacob Stretch is a lot of fun to watch. So yeah, a lot of good shout outs. A lot of good shout outs this week, as we typically do. I've always loved this segment. I actually thinking about it, we don't get a lot of feedback on this segment, so I don't know if people actually like it or not, but we like it. So we've been doing it for 4 years now. No one said stop doing it, so we keep doing it. But yeah, I also like to use this segment. We kind of, find the FCL guys, the DSL guys to kind of start planting the seeds of guys that we think are, all right, these could be somebody. And so for my hitters, I wanted to bring back 2 guys who we've mentioned a couple of times. I think all 3 of us have probably mentioned one or the other at least once. But wanted to bring them back as the DSL season starts to wrap up a little bit. But Lisandro Sanchez down in the DSL, both these guys are DSL bats, but Lisandro Sanchez in the DSL, he hit 438 last week with 3 doubles, and Starlin Miesis, he hit 364 with a home run, 7 walks, and 2 strikeouts in 4 games. Both guys are having fantastic years in the DSL. They're not the big name guys, the big roster or big signing bonus guys, but they're having great seasons. Been able to watch a lot of them on the YouTube streams. Lisandro Sanchez was an all-star this year for the DSL Orioles, so loud exit velos, good contact. Just intrigued by both of those guys to see what they do in the FCL, and who knows, maybe one or both are guys we're in consideration for our top 50 next year. TBD, but just keep those guys and names in the back of your mind. And on the pitching side, I mentioned this name. I feel like every time I did our Patreon exclusive weekly recap episode, every time I did it, I felt like Brandon Downer was doing a rehab outing in the FCL. Draft pick last year, started this year on the injured list, and missed pretty much the entire year. So we have never seen him pitch professionally. He got to Delmarva last week, finally got the call. It went a relief outing, but it was 4 2/3 relief innings, allowed 1 hit, no runs, no walks, and 8 strikeouts. And of course, I kept saying in every one of those Patreon episodes that I was stoked and excited to just to see what he could do in Delmarva. See if we add him to the long list of intriguing pitching prospects in this system. See if it's there or not. And of course, Delmarva's camera decided to be crap that night, and we did not get the center field view. We had a terrible view in that game. So couldn't make much of the stuff, but it was like a tease. I have to wait a little bit longer this week. Maybe that'll be the night that I drive down to Lynchburg to actually watch him for myself. But it was a great first start, and hopefully he's able to build on that over these last 3-4 outings that he gets. But yeah, and real quick, you mentioned the name as well, but Tyson Neighbors, just shout him out as well. 2 1/3 scoreless innings this week with a pair of strikeouts. Gave me all the flashbacks watching him pitch at Kansas State, except now he's evolved into what should be a AAA arm. And yeah, if you like Teddy Sharkey, if you haven't watched Tyson Neighbors pitch yet, but you've watched Teddy Sharkey pitch and you fell in love, here you go. The Orioles brought him back and said, here we go. We got the evolved version. We got the Charizard version of Teddy Sharkey right here. Like, this is a lot of fun. Made Travis Bazzana look like a low A ball player, not a guy who was weirdly just promoted to AAA for Cleveland, but that's another podcast episode.
Good picks from both of you this week. I'm going to start with my hitter, and it's another trade deadline acquisition. That's Brandon Butterworth. Butterworth came over from the Padres in the Ryan O'Hearn, Ramon Laureano deal. He went, after putting up solid numbers at high A Fort Wayne and San Diego system, comes over to the Orioles and goes right to Double A, and he made a splash there last week, going 8 for 28, belting 2 home runs. And what is interesting to me is that this is yet another player that is exceeding his stolen base totals from college. We've kind of seen this in the past. Billy Cook, I think, got a little bit more aggressive when he came into the Orioles system. And Butterworth this year, now granted, 13 of these 17 stolen bases were with the Padres. 17 stolen bases this season in 19 attempts. His career high in college was 13 with NC State last year. Last week alone, he went 4 for 4 in stolen base attempts. I'm sure the Roberto Mercado effect is in play right now, and Butterworth will steal 30 bases in the remaining weeks of this season. But that, I don't know whether or not Butterworth, who did not make our top 50 last week, is a guy that we should be excited about or not going forward. But either way, last week was a lot of fun to watch. And then my pitcher this week is actually another trade deadline acquisition, albeit in a different trade. And that's Cameron Foster, who came over from the Mets in the Gregory Soto deal. If you look at Foster's numbers right now at AAA Norfolk, they're pretty ugly, but he had a really bad outing 2 weeks ago against Memphis that has really inflated those numbers. Rebounded, put together a pretty solid pair of outings last week. 2 innings combined between those 2 appearances with 1 unearned run, 3 strikeouts. And the fastball, when you look at the data, looks pretty good right now, consistently hitting 95 with it. He did touch 97 in his outing on August 7th. So he can run the fastball up there in the mid to upper 90s, mixes that in with a cutter, a curveball, and a slider. It was interesting because of the 2 outings that he had last week, the outing on the 7th, he was more curveball heavy, and then he came back on the 9th and relied on the slider a little bit more. I don't know what to make of that, but it's going to be interesting to see how he mixes and matches those pitches going forward. But Foster, in what's kind of a pivotal month for him, being a guy that is Rule 5 eligible at the end of this year, with, I think, a legitimate chance at making the 40-man roster, put together a solid week last week. So good production from him, and hopefully he's able to build on that.
My philosophy when looking at Norfolk Tides stats or watching Norfolk Tides games, whenever they play Memphis, the stats don't matter. Those games are anomalies, and you can just throw those stats out the window. So he's doing a fantastic job.
And it has been that way for years. I remember one series there in 2021. I don't think there was a pitcher that got out of that without their ERA being above 6. Kyle Bradis included.
Yeah, that first series, I think that was probably the first time they started playing. that season because they've added a couple new teams that they've been playing this year. But yeah, anyway, the Memphis series, not fun games to watch.
I am loving watching Brandon Butterworth. He's syrupy sweet out there, if you will. There's got to be a really good nickname for him down the pike. But yeah, I don't know how the numbers for the Padres were good. He looks great, gets promoted to AA, and just does not miss a beat. I don't know how excited to get about him, but I'm certainly loving watching him play.
Absolutely. And with that, that does it for this episode. We're going to be back later on this week to recap everything that went on down in the FCL this season. You're not going to want to miss that. In the meantime, you can check out our many social media channels, including Facebook, Instagram, Threads, X, TikTok, YouTube, Twitch, and Blue Sky. We're also over at Substack, OriolesOnTheVerge.substack.com. And while you're browsing around the internet, be sure to head over to Patreon and sign up to become a member today. You can join the $3, $5, or $10 levels and have access to bonus weekly episodes from Bob, Nick, and myself, as well as monthly updates to our top 50 list and patron-exclusive channels within our Discord. So you're not going to want to miss that. For Bob Phelan and Nick Stevens and Zach Spedden, you've been listening to Orioles on the Verge, part of the Believe Podcast Network. Welcome to Orioles on the Verge. This is Zach Spedden, joined as always by Bob Phelan and Nick Stevens. And on tonight's episode, we're going to look back at the 2025 FCL season for the Orioles. Now, the FCL season has been over for a couple of weeks, but between the draft and the trade deadline, we've had a lot going on over here. So we're just now getting a chance to recap what went on down in the FCL this year. And there were a lot of stories. Not all of them were positive, certainly with the death of Luis Guevara during the season. Very trying year for these players. Nevertheless, though, the team did put together a 37-22 record. Several of their notable prospects were able to make the jump up from the FCL to low A at some point during the season, whether it was early on like Nate George or right around the time the season ended for the cases of players like Esteban Mejia, Steven Martinez, and Andrew Tess. And the Orioles managed over the course of the season to lead the league in several key categories offensively, including batting average and OPS. Their pitching staff, meanwhile, held up on its own pretty well, posting the third best ERA in the system at 3.70. So what we're going to do tonight is break down some of the notable performances that we saw in the FCL this season. We'll wrap up by naming our pitcher and hitter of the year for the level. And Nick, I will start with you. You had written an article before the FCL season got underway that said that this was the best roster that the Orioles had fielded at the FCL for years. Do you think that this team lived up to that expectation?
Yeah, I so wish this is the only affiliate we get nothing from. So it always makes this episode the hardest to do. But yeah, this was definitely the most interesting year to follow the FCL. And I think a lot of that had to do with the rising group of international prospects in the system. Like, yes, Andrew Tess and Nate George had fantastic years down there and really helped this team. And even guys like Luis Almeida and Joshua Lorenzo were up kind of early, but you still saw the depth of the international prospects in the system start to rise. And they were a big reason why this FCL team, I think they were only, like one game out of the playoffs. So it was a very good year down there. Pitching, there's some intriguing arms we could take note of here. But of course, all the top guys are now in Delmarva, and we'll dive more into those guys as Delmarva wraps up. But yeah, still a very impressive group down there in the FCL that didn't go up. And I think a very big prospect of note that did not get that call up to Delmarva yet for we think we know why, but yeah, pretty good year down there in the FCL. Shout out to those who get a chance to watch those games because you got to see some really good baseball this year.
Yeah, I think it's the best FCL team other than maybe that first year when Gunnar was there. And I don't know, I'd have to go back and look.
The championship year, the greatest team to ever exist.
Yeah, but I'd have to compare. But just the depth of talent alone, I feel like was pretty incredible this year. Even DJ Layton, Braylon Whitaker, like you could just rattle off names that even if they didn't have the best success, like there's still guys that I'm watching for next year and I'm intrigued by. But yeah, what a season. Even I feel like all the pitchers that got starters innings, at least even I don't have my notes for this part, but either Jesus Palacios or one of the other lefties, Francisco Morale. One of them had like a 6.5 ERA, but like a million strikeouts. So at least they had that going for them. But I feel like all the pitchers that got starters innings really kind of showed out a little bit, and obviously the lineup was just pretty deep from top to bottom. Even as guys left, guys like Jose Mejia, Adriander Mejia, these guys stepped up. Felix Amparo, he got off to a slow start, but then towards the end of the season, he started kicking it into high gear. So, yeah, a lot of these guys obviously going to be moving up to Delmarva start 2026, and the international market has arrived for the Baltimore Orioles, like it already had, because obviously Samuel Basallo will be making his major league debut potentially this week, potentially the week after, but. Yeah, I think it's just continuing to proliferate up the system.
Yeah, absolutely. And let's start by focusing on the bats. As I mentioned, the Orioles led the FCL in batting average and OPS this year. And they had a few hitters get off to really hot starts there and earn a promotion to Delmarva early in the season. Nate George had an OPS of over 1,000 in 23 games before he was promoted. Luis Almeida putting together what has really been, to this point at least, his first healthy season as a professional. Got off to a good start there. 20 games, 729 OPS before he was promoted. Joshua Lorenzo, who was hampered a little bit last year by an ankle injury or a lower body injury from what we have heard, 24 games before he was promoted. He put up very strong numbers as well. And you would have thought after those three guys left that this lineup would have lost a little bit of momentum. And that wasn't the case. And I think two big reasons why were Andrew Tess and Jordan Sanchez. And these are two players with much different profiles. Sanchez, an outfielder with a lot of raw power. Tess, a catcher / first baseman who has a lot of room to grow defensively, but put together a solid year thanks to good bat-to-ball skills and a really, really patient approach at the plate for his age. So there are more hitters we could shout out, and I'm sure that we will in this segment. But I think when you look at those two guys in particular, they really helped carry the load for this lineup over the course of the season.
Yeah, Andrew Tess, I feel like he started off and he was just walking a ton, not exactly making maybe it was, I didn't see his BABIP. Maybe it was bad luck. Maybe it was just, not seeing the ball particularly well. But then, man, towards the end of that season, he was just roasting the ball in the FCL, got his numbers for the season up to a really good level. I think he's looked really good since I've been able to see him at Delmarva. So certainly excited about him at 18, 19 years old. Again, don't have my notes, so it's one of those. He's young, high school draft pick. And Jordan Sanchez, yeah, just slugger. I mean, he did basically what he did in the DSL, just translated over to the FCL, didn't miss a beat. And yeah, shame he had to get hurt on the last game of the season, or I think we'd be seeing him in Delmarva right now. But yeah, great year for him. Another great international prospect to add to the list.
Yeah, Tess, we talked about him last week and the fact that just the fact that he's an 18-year-old and learning to catch. And we talked a lot about the struggles with Creed Willems and what he had to adjust to behind the plate early on in his career. Andrew Tess has got to do that as well, calling games, learning the pitching staff, language barrier as well down there. So a lot to deal with for an 18-year-old kid. And he was a 149 WRC plus in the FCL. And since he's moved up to Delmarva just 10 games, it's a 135 WRC plus. He's had a tremendous year. And Sanchez, like I've never been so frustrated with a player that I have no business being frustrated with. But it's just because outside of a couple of games with the DSL, like we've had zero opportunity to really sit down and watch Sanchez. And we know he is a very good prospect in the system. He is a top 30 prospect. He's someone that we're all excited to watch. And you look at the numbers, a 165 WRC plus in the DSL last year. He gets to the FCL this year, a 161 WRC plus. The strikeout rate did jump from 20% to 29%, but the walk rate went up even more to 16%. He had 24 extra base hits on the year, hit nearly 300. I think the 29% strikeout rate is kind of an outlier. I don't think he hits that again, but don't know exactly what to make of it. I've not been able to watch him on a nightly basis, but It's the power that also makes him so intriguing, because we do know when he was in the DSL, he was topping out at 108 plus miles per hour exit velo numbers. I don't know what they were this year. I'm sure they're even higher. And if they are, this is a kid with like plus power potential. So yeah, hopefully the injury isn't too serious, and hopefully he is the starting right fielder, left fielder, doesn't matter, on opening day for Delmarva next year. And we can finally, after 2 years, watch this kid.
Yeah, see, I've been unable to move him past a certain point because I haven't really been able to see him. I'm interested to compare him to Thomas Sosa once we actually do, because I've been able to watch Thomas Sosa just annihilate a baseball. And yeah, he's a fun player who hasn't put it all together yet. But yeah, Jordan Sanchez, is he better than Thomas Sosa? About the same, worse? It's hard to tell until we actually see him in person.
Yeah, if you're going to go purely off the stat line, I think that you would probably argue for Sanchez over Sosa, because it's not, I think both have raw power, but it would seem that Sanchez has tapped into his a little bit more, but Sosa has also been doing it at a higher level. So you got to weigh that consideration as well. And honestly, I don't know that I can give you any sort of educated guess even on how Jordan Sanchez looks defensively at this point. So that's one thing that is a little bit frustrating when you're trying to evaluate him. But you can see from the numbers that he's someone with a lot of power. And I want to shout out Tess for this reason. I knew that early on this year he was struggling to at least have the balls put in play, dropped for hits. Over his first 30 games, or through his first 30 games, he was hitting 187. But he had a 415 on base percentage, and some of that was because he was hit by the pitch 10 times in just 30 games. But he also drew 20 walks in that time period. And by the end of the season, he got the batting average up to 256, a 149 WRC plus, as Nick just mentioned a moment ago, and an 18% walk rate. So he clearly stayed within himself with his approach and was able to make the adjustments that he needed to make to start having success, and got to low as a young prospect by the end of this season. We just talked on our last episode about how what a big deal it was for Nate George to get to Delmarva and then get up to Aberdeen at 19 years old. Andrew Tess got to Delmarva at 18. He's not going to turn 19 until next week. He will be Delmarva's opening day catcher next year, most likely at just 19 years old. So that really puts into perspective how far he's come this season.
Yeah, for sure. And this is not going to contribute any way to your analysis that you just did, but thinking of future Orioles Major League giveaways, test trucks, like, let's go. Come on. I could see it in my head right now. But yeah, you got to love the development of Andrew Tess at 18 years old, and just, yeah, you've seen the progression throughout the year as he's learned and adjusted. So I can imagine him coming out and just, like, not even he might be Delmarva's opening day catcher, but if he's going to continue to make strides over the offseason into next year, it probably won't be for long before he's in Aberdeen.
I mean, any giveaway is better than a bobblehead of your owner, but I want to give a couple other one other shout out for positive play. Jose Mejia, I think somebody mentioned the name earlier, but just very quietly had a good year. They did send him up to Aberdeen for a couple of games, but I don't think the 2 games in May, due to just an injury-riddled year, pitching, hitters, it didn't matter, majors, minors, all across the organization. I don't think that classifies him as a bounce-around guy, the bounce-around org guy we typically see. I think it was just an emergency, and he has a good bat, so they called him up for 2 days. He got a $410,000 signing bonus 2 years ago, so I think there is some optimism here. He hit 275 this year in the FCL, had a 16.5% walk rate, just a 10% strikeout rate, played second, third, both corner outfield spots. So that's a guy that I'm intrigued by. Like, that's a guy that I'm circling the name. I don't know how high the ceiling is, but that's at least a guy that's going to be of intrigue, when probably he's a utility guy for Delmarva next year. And you mentioned the high school picks. Yeah, Whitaker was, the 2024 draft pick that we knew like nothing about. The kid from North Carolina, very little information out there. and he really wasn't getting regular run in the FCL to begin the year, and then he hit the 60-day IL. I don't know if his injury was ever announced, probably not, but so we still didn't learn anything this year about Braylon Whitaker, unfortunately. But with DJ Layton, I don't think any of us had any visions of him like instantly stepping on the field and doing what Nate George did. We didn't even envision Nate George doing what Nate George is doing, but there was definitely a lot of excitement about him. But if you look at his numbers, they weren't very good this year, straight up. And especially because, I mean, the first time we saw DJ Layton was the spring breakout game. I think he was a pinch hitter, got that base hit up the middle. You're like, all right, we're cooking with something here. He was a 6th-round pick that got a $700,000 something signing bonus, almost $400,000 above slot value. I don't remember the exact amount, but he was, for those first couple of weeks, like he was always at the top of the leaderboard in terms of at bat. So they were running him out there every day, the top of the lineup. And then he didn't play for like 3 weeks, didn't go in the IL, but he didn't play. Clearly he was hurt. Never really got a chance to show any signs of life and really settle in. So I think this year, kind of a wash, unfortunately, but hopefully he's producing down there in the FCL postseason play and see what he can do next year, probably repeating FCL, to be honest. But I mean, 2 out of 4 high school picks last year took off this year. So really can't complain too much about this group after year 1.
Not at all. And another guy I just want to shout out is Jose Perez, who started the season in the DSL, I want to say, got promoted to the FCL around when Nate George was promoted to Delmarva, and put up some pretty good numbers in the FCL. And for the past 2 weeks, he's been playing some third base for the Bowie or Chesapeake Bay Sox randomly. So interesting year for that guy.
We'll go over now to the pitching staff. And I think that if you're following the Orioles farm system at this point, you know who the headliner was in the FCL this year on the pitching side, and that was Esteban Mejia. Mejia put up phenomenal numbers, 11 starts, a 2.45 ERA with 53 strikeouts, which was good for second in the FCL this season, over 40 and a third innings pitched. He's gotten top 100 shout out from Baseball America. He's now at low A Delmarva. And Mejia, I know we're going to talk about him a lot on this episode, but he was not the only pitcher that stood out this season. Francisco Morale, a guy that Bob just mentioned a moment ago, struck out 42 batters in 34 and 2/3 innings pitched while posting a 3.38 ERA. Jesus Palacios, 6.5 ERA, yes, but he also whiffed 52 batters in 36 innings pitched. So you look at this pitching staff, some decent strikeout numbers from both starters and relievers. I know that Mejia is the big name here, but overall, this is a pretty solid group.
Yeah, absolutely. And Adrian Heredia is another guy that had a pretty good season in the FCL. He got a cup of coffee with Delmarva when I think they needed some fresh arms for some injuries, and did not perform well there in a very short sample, but came back down to the FCL. And again, another left-handed pitcher who I know nothing about. I didn't even get to see his Delmarva stint or outing, but numbers look good. And who's the other guy? Kevin Velasco, I think. Is that a name?
Yeah, I got him down. He had a good year as well.
Yeah, that's another guy I'm really intrigued by when it comes to the Delmarva pitching staff in early 2026.
Hopefully you guys aren't hearing all the dinging and all the noise. Okay, good. My wife is blowing up my phone because apparently Taylor Swift is going on New Heights podcast and she's freaking out. Your husband has a podcast. Why don't you watch that one first? Anyway, yeah, the pitching in the FCL. Yeah, Francisco Morales is the big name that I think I'm excited to watch. 6'2" lefty, good DSL debut, struggled in the FCL last year, repeated the level, still 19 years old, and the strikeout rate went from 22% to almost 28%. The walk rate dropped 15% to 12.6%, so still not good there, but he's young. He's figuring it out in the right direction. He was 92 when they first signed him. He got one of those introductory videos after the international classes signed, but he was up to 92 with life, according to the Orioles. Changeup that projects to be an average offering, and a 12.6 curveball as a strikeout pitch. So yeah, the stat sheet looked good this year down there in the FCL, and if the data under the hood matches that, then I think he's going to be a really interesting name to watch in Delmarva. And I believe the best stat, I was trying to find if there was another at bat. I believe it was just one at bat though. Ronald Acuna Jr. is 0 for 1 against Francisco Morale this year. So, yeah, another notch on Morale's belt. And then you mentioned Kevin Velasco. I actually did write him down here. Signed for just $50,000 a couple of years ago. Doesn't turn 20 until January. He had 40 innings in the DSL last year with a 1.13 ERA, 52 strikeouts to 10 walks. This year in the FCL, 36 innings, 34 strikeouts, 12 walks, 3.75 ERA. Don't know much about the stuff. Don't know anything about the stuff, to be honest. But the numbers look good. This could be another low dollar fun sign by the Orioles here. And I will say, I was trying to find some more information about the stuff. And there was an article, a Prospects Live article from last August that had one under the radar prospect for each organization. And Preston Farr, whoever you are, he chose Kevin Velasco as his under the radar pick for the Orioles to have a breakout 2025. So that didn't happen, but still time. So if it does, shout out to Preston Farr for calling that. And yeah, you mentioned Palacios. He did have a ton of strikeouts, I think 52 strikeouts or something in like 20, 30 something innings. He was also involved in the jet ski accident. So I do wonder, obviously I didn't really know how to bring him up in this episode, how to talk about that one. But there's a lot of talent there in that arm. I think we'll see what his status is next year, but definitely a ton of strikeouts this year in the FCL. And one more name, Harlan Knott, 6'2", righty, 20 years old, doesn't turn 21 until next April. So he was one of those older arms that the Orioles signed late in the year. He signed last July, only got 10 innings in the DSL, but they bumped him up to the FCL this year. 31 innings at 2.3 ERA, 175 average against. Strikeouts low, only 18.5%, but he's got good walk numbers. And maybe like put him in Delmarva's bullpen next year and see if anything's there. But yeah, Harlan Knott, Kevin Velasco, and Francisco Morale were the three big guys that are still down there in the FCL right now.
Is there a big breakout for Harlan in 2026? Probably not, but we'll see.
One more guy I would shout out in this group, I know we talked about him a little bit on our last episode, and that's Andy Fabian. Fabian, after primarily starting in the DSL last year, moved to the bullpen this season and put up pretty good numbers in the FCL. 17 innings pitched, 26 strikeouts, a 2.12 ERA. The walks were a little high, and the ground ball rate was down. But one thing of note is that last year, Fabian was primarily 91 to 93 was the fastball in the DSL out of the rotation. This year, it's been more 93 to 95. I don't know if this is a situation where the velo increase was going to happen anyways, or if they were putting him in the bullpen to get more out of his fastball, and that's exactly what happened. But that's a little bit of a stuff jump that I want to note. And now Fabian is older. He's 22. He's going to turn 23 in January. But if you're looking for someone that the Orioles could develop as kind of an interesting under-the-radar relief prospect, Fabian is one of those guys. Good curveball to go with his fastball as well.
Yeah, like we talked about on the last episode, gets a ton of ground balls, doesn't give up much hard contact, strikes out a ton of guys, walks a ton of guys, but funky delivery. Obviously, batters have a hard time seeing what's coming in there. So hopefully can continue to build on that.
And with that, now we will head into our final segment of the night. Last call brought to you by Checker Spot Brewing, located at 1421 Ridgely Street. Checker Spot is not far from Camden Yards, making it the perfect place for a pre- or post-game drink. And when you're at the ballpark this year, be sure to check out the beer stand behind home plate, where you can get one of Checker Spot's signature beers, The Bird is the Word. And in our final segment tonight, we're going to present our hitter and pitcher of the year for the FCL. Now, what we did was we all three went in and submitted our votes for the best hitter and the best pitcher. There was no ranked voting, and there was no drama here. Across the board, we had the same two players, Jordan Sanchez for hitter of the year and Esteban Mejia for pitcher of the year. And if you've heard us talk about these guys on this episode tonight, we've already dove into some of the numbers for both of them, but we'll give a little bit more background as we shout them out here in this segment. Nick, I will start with you. We mentioned it still feels like there's a lot of things we don't know about Jordan Sanchez, but statistically, what we could see from him this season was very impressive.
Yeah, and even though he's not at Delmarva yet, like he turns 20 in October, so yeah, he might be a little bit older, but yeah, it's that power is something that I want to see. And I do like Bob's example there of kind of using Thomas Sosa as the barometer next year when we do get to see him. I think that is going to be a really good test. But yeah, 5 home runs this year, hit nearly 300. I mentioned the 161 WRC plus, 16 doubles as well. So more power in the tank than what we saw. He's going to be a lot of fun. I just hope that injury isn't too serious, whatever it was. Excited to finally see him next year.
Yeah, that's all it is for me. I got to see him in the field. I got to see him at the plate. I got to see what this guy even looks like standing in a batter's box. So, yeah, I'm excited to find out. Obviously, the numbers look great, but is he real? We don't know until he gets to Delmarva. Like, literally, does he exist? I don't know.
And we'll go to our pitcher now, Esteban Mejia. As I just mentioned a moment ago, Mejia finished second in the FCL in strikeouts. He's now at low A Delmarva and putting up very strong numbers over his first 2 outings with the Shorebirds. He's also been recognized as the top 100 prospect by Baseball America. We were a little bit more tempered in our evaluation of Mejia when we did our recent top 50 update. He ranks at number 12 in the farm system for us right now. But still, this has been a really impressive rise. And I'll correct myself there, 13th in the farm system per our list. But this has been a really impressive rise for Mejia this year. Bob, I'll start with you. How would you summarize Esteban Mejia at this point?
Electric. Yeah, I think I'll be Dr. Keith Law and say the delivery is perfect. The delivery is great. Yeah, he's got a natural, starter's build, starter's delivery. I will say I was promised that he sits 100 and touches 102. I feel like it's been more like he sits 98 and touches 100, but that maybe he's gotten a little tired as he reaches his innings total from last year here, moving up to Delmarva. But the slider, that's been more impressive than I was expecting. I've seen it as high as 94 miles per hour and just nasty. I'm not disappointed in the fastball, by the way. It looks ridiculously good, too. 4 1/3 innings pitched, only 1 walk and 7 strikeouts in his last outing Sunday. I think, Zach, you were there to see it in person. Can't wait to hear what you thought. But just from what I've been able to see in his 2 starts with Delmarva, and I was paying pretty close attention, I think I don't know about top 100. I feel like I'd still have Trey Gibson ahead of him because he's doing it now in AAA. But he's certainly something. He's certainly a nice asset to have in this organization and a key reason why you need that international program.
Yeah, it's just, I don't know. Is it the scars of Keeler Morphe? Although he had a really good outing. Well, he had a really good outing this past weekend. But I do think it might be the scars of Keeler Morphe a little bit here. Just, we haven't seen him pitch in the cold yet. He was in the DSL, then to Sarasota, doesn't come to Delmarva until this past week. So let's see what he's like next early April, back in Salisbury. He doesn't turn 19 until March. So when he takes the mound that first week of the season next year, he will be just barely 19 years old with a real opportunity to be in high A by midseason if all goes to plan. And he continues to pitch like this. But yeah, the numbers are fantastic. Zach was there. You've been able to see him in person. That's going to be the best analysis here on Mejia, being the guy who's seen him up close and personal. Is it explosive in real life as it is that we've seen the clips of?
Well, I'll put it this way. The first pitch of the game per the stadium gun was 100 miles per hour, and it had a sound. It wasn't like, it looks like it was fast. It had a sound. And it was just this zip flying out of Mejia's hand over home plate, a strike. What I think is so good about Mejia right now is that he can change speeds with the fastball with ease and do it in a way that the hitter doesn't know what to get. And I have to think that, especially coming from that 6'4" frame, that there's a pretty big difference between 97 and 100 with the fastball coming out of Mejia's hand. But the way that he manages his delivery from the tempo to the release point, you don't really know what you're going to get when he lets go of a fastball. It could be 97, it could be 100, it could be 98. You just don't know. And the hitters really don't have a lot of time to react. He's got a really powerful slider that is just flat out nasty when he locates it. I put this in our Discord that I kind of got Kerry Wood flashbacks, watching his slider a little bit. Go back to young Kerry Wood and how he could just mow hitters down with his slider. Mejia flashes that at points. He mixes in a changeup, which I don't think is on the same level as a slider, but when it's coming out at about 92 miles per hour, it's clearly a pitch you want to work with. The big thing for Mejia is just going to be throwing strikes more consistently. Right now, I think he works himself into a lot of deep counts. And because his stuff is so good and because he's in low A, he's able to battle his way out of them. But as he moves up, that's going to be a challenge that he's going to have to overcome because you're not going to be able to blow hitters away like you are in low A. But if he can get to a point where he's getting ahead in the count consistently and staying ahead, look out, because the stuff is really good now. And I have to think, given how the Orioles develop their pitchers, that they're going to find something else to add to his arsenal at some point.
Yeah. You have to imagine there's something softer that could go along with it. But yeah, this is a tinkering organization, and I love it. Maybe they do the 2-3 fastball thing where he'll have 4-seam, 2-seam cutter. Yeah, a lot to do, a lot of gold to work with here.
And that's, if you look at the walk numbers, some of the control issues he has, like, if I see that from an arm like Esteban Mejia, I view that a lot differently than I do Chase Allsup, who's also in Delmarva right now. That's a more advanced college arm who's having the control issues. Can you fix it as he gets older? Yes, you can. If we could talk about Chase McDermott up in AAA, that's a whole segment on its own. You can see some progressions you can make there, but like that's something you can fix. But like, how much are you really going to? Is Chase Allsup ever going to have that really good control and command that he could allow him to become a starter at the next level? But with Esteban Mejia, you're talking about an 18-year-old kid and these taller, lankier international prospects who they need to grow so much physically. By the time they're in the DSL, to next year, opening day next year, he's going to be 2 inches taller, 30, 40 pounds heavier potentially over that 2-3 year span. And so now he's got to learn how to pitch with this entire new physical frame. And look at Eber Kataya, the baby giraffe last year. Look how much more under control he is this year. I think it's those taller, lanky international prospects that have wild control in the DSL. If the stuff is as good like that, like Mejia has, like, I'm not concerned really at all up to this point about the Walker control issues.
Yeah, absolutely. And I would add on to that I think for his frame, he's very lanky at 6'4". He does a reasonably good job of repeating his delivery. Obviously, it's something he should get better at as he fills out. But compared to, Killer Morphe, certainly, or some of the other younger international arms in the system, I think Mejia is a little bit ahead in that area.
It certainly seems so.
And with that does it for this week's episode. We will be back next week to break down all the latest news in Birdland. In the meantime, you can check us out on our many social media channels, including Facebook, Instagram, Threads, X, TikTok, YouTube, Twitch, and Blue Sky. We're also over at Substack, OriolesOnTheVerge.substack.com. And while you're browsing around the internet, be sure to head over to Patreon and sign up to become a member of our community. You can join at the $3, $5, or $10 levels, have access to bonus weekly shows from Bob, Nick, and myself, as well as monthly updates to our top 50 list and patron-exclusive channels within our Discord community. You're not going to want to miss that. For Bob Phelan and Nick Stevens, this is Zach Spedden. You've been listening to Orioles on the Verge, part of the Believe Podcast Network.